Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you've been having a great holiday season and you've been enjoying your trains. So doing something a little bit different here today. I'm in front of the camera. Usually for the train videos I'm behind the camera and you're just looking at the trains. But I thought I'd try something a little bit different as I got something in new from Lionel. This is the Cumberland Valley Wayfreight set. This was cataloged in the volume 2 of 22 catalog. So I've been waiting a little bit for this set, but it was well worth the wait. Now, Chris's Trains and Things has reviewed this set, so I'm not going to go too far in depth because he did a great video. You should go check it out too, for sure. But this set features the Pennsylvania Railroad L1 Mikado and a few cars. So why don't we take a look at it? So to start things off here, let's look at the front of the train. So this set features, as I said, an L1 Mikado, and the L1s were also cataloged in the volume 2 of 22 catalog. This one here is numbered 520, which is also the one that is preserved at the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania in Strasburg. Now, if you visited the museum recently, you'll know that this engine is sitting out in the yard around the turntable with the tender in front of the engine. It is waiting a cosmetic restoration. And this locomotive is slightly different in its appearance. The way it is preserved was the way it came off the railroad. So it has the front end treatment that's a little bit different. The generator here, which you can kind of see, is actually on the front, and the headlight would be up here. They did that later on in the Penske's steam era as to make generator maintenance a little easier. This model is Lionel, but the tooling that's used is from MTH. So Lionel has bought some of the tooling, is able to use some of the tooling that MTH trains created for their products. And so the boiler and the tender are all from MTH. Now the interesting thing, and I had to take this engine apart, I had a slight problem with it, and I'm going to go over that in a separate video. Not to bash Lionel or anything, it's just to make people aware that this may be an issue you see down the road. But when I took the engine apart, I realized that the motor actually sits in here backwards. So normally the flywheel of the motor would be facing the cab towards the back. This one faces the front. If you're familiar with the scale-sized K-line locomotives from the early 2000s, they did the same thing. And from what I've seen online, these engines actually feature the same chassis as those old K-line locomotives. So it's a MTH boiler on top of a Lionel/K-line frame. This locomotive also comes equipped with the command system Legacy. I came up in a world when TMCC was the standard, so I tend to call it TMCC still. You know, it's just like that favorite restaurant you have that changes names after they've been bought out, but you still call it by the old name. I still call it Trainmaster Command or TMCC, but nowadays it's called Legacy. I tend to call it Command just so I don't get someone confused. And comes with rail sounds and all the features that we're used to seeing on the top of the line Lionel steam locomotive. It does have the whistle feature. This is one great thing that Lionel added to this tooling. So when you blow the whistle, you have steam that comes out from underneath the whistle and makes it look like it's actually blowing steam out of it. And as we move back to the tender, it's a very nice looking Pennsylvania tender. Even has a doghouse, and it's even illuminated, which I thought was a really nice touch. And it features a brakeman figure inside. We zoom in a little bit here. Great looking model of the short Pennsylvania freight tender. Now, as the train pulls up here, we'll take a look at some of the freight cars. So I had my set out on the layout as it was pictured in the catalog. So the first car is this U.S. Navy boxcar, and it has the freight sound. So the clickety-clack sounds you were hearing as the train was pulling up are coming out of this boxcar. Now the freight sounds feature to me has been a little overplayed by Lionel, but I didn't have one. If you watch the first train video I ever did, it was actually on this layout last year on the Christmas layout. It was down on the floor here, and it was of the Hobo Sounds car that I have, which does feature freight sounds in it too, along with the Hobos. So this is not the first freight sounds car that I have, but this is the first one that is strictly just a freight sounds car. Not much to it in appearance. In fact, when I saw it in the catalog, I thought, really? It's a little plain Jane looking, but this is what a U.S. Navy car would look in real life. It wouldn't have a whole lot of decoration or anything on it. So, nice looking car. Lionel's been making this car since the early 2000s, and I'm really impressed with it. The next car in the set is kind of interesting. So, this is the Adam's Apple produce car, reefer car, and I was actually hearing of people who were buying this car, or buying the whole set just to get this one car. People used to do this in the 80s and the 90s with the service sets. They would buy the whole set just to get one car that was exclusive to that set. And I saw it and thought, oh, that's pretty neat. I'll get into more why that this car and all of the theme of this whole set. I'll get into that more here in a little bit. But great graphics. It is a nice looking car, but this is not the reason why I bought the set. I didn't buy it just for this car. The next car that we have in the set is a flat car. This is a Pullman Standard 4 flat car, and it's really well detailed. It has a wood top on it that is a real wood top. It smelled like fresh wood when I pulled it out of the box. And sitting on top of it is a fully functional bump and go trolley, lettered for Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. The trolley works great, and I'm a big fan of motorized units, so this was a big draw for me with the set. The set included this. And then, of course, at the end of every good freight train is a caboose. Excuse me, on the Pennsy we call this a cabin car. Don't ask me where that comes from, other than there are bunks in the car, but the Pennsylvania men called this a cabin car. This specific class of cabin cars is pretty interesting. It's an N6B caboose. This was a Lines West design. So the Pennsylvania in the earlier days considered the railroad in two halves. Everything east of Pittsburgh, everything west of Pittsburgh. So everything west of Pittsburgh was called Lines West. And it had its own operation crew and everything, and they came up with this design. And the caboose, it is a wood caboose. They were rebuilt from bobber cabooses, you know, the little four-wheel jobs. And one interesting thing here is the cupola is curved on the top. With that curve on the top, the caboose gained the nickname of a Mae West. If you know who Mae West was, you can kind of figure out why they called it a Mae West. This was something that my father has always wanted to actually scratch build, and we've wanted to get one of these cabooses for a while. So again, another draw for this set for me. So why did I get this set? If you've seen the channel, you know that I don't normally get these scale size trains from Lionel. These are O gauge still, they're just scale sized. O scale trains would run on 2-rail track and it would be the right flange size, everything's to scale. But in the 3-rail world, these are called O gauge, whether they're the right size O scale or not. But the main reason why I wanted to get it was I had just gotten a new job working for music and art, so I had a little bit extra spending money, and I just wanted to get something a little bit nicer than what I normally would get. I usually collect post-war Lionel and MPC, Coon era. That's usually what I get. I got a lot of Rail King locomotives and rolling stock too. So all of that being said, this set actually fits in with all that pretty good. The reason that it does fit in so well is that the scale prototypes actually aren't that big. The biggest car in the set lengthwise is the flat car, and it even looks pretty good on these 036 curves here on my Super Road layout. If you're wondering, my outside loop, I actually bent out. So it's the Super Road, these are all stock standard Super Road pieces from Lionel from back in the 50s and 60s, but I actually bent them out so that they would be to the right radius for this locomotive. The locomotive takes 042 curves, so if you don't have the biggest layout in the world, you can run this set, which of course was part of my reasoning too. And even with the engine being the right scale size, it still will look good with my 736 Berkshires, 2046 Hudsons, all of my traditional sized locomotives. The Cumberland Valley Railroad ran from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, down through Hagerstown, Maryland, down into Winchester, Virginia. Now, I went to school at the Shenandoah Conservatory of Music in Winchester, Virginia, and I actually remember where the Pennsylvania station was. It's still there, and it was a children's theater, I believe, and there was a boxcar sitting outside, but there was no rail activity happening near it. Now, the Winchester and Western, which is a short line railroad there in Winchester, it actually still operates the line from Winchester all the way up to Hagerstown on that old Pennsylvania trackage. Hagerstown, Maryland also has a big, rich history of railroading also. The Western Maryland had a big engine facility there, and the Baltimore, Ohio also ran there. The Reading, of course, the Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania bought the Cumberland Valley around the turn of the century, so that's why this set is a Pennsylvania set. And then also, that was the terminus for the Norfolk and Western Shenandoah Valley branch that ran from Roanoke all the way up to Hagerstown, Maryland. With the theme being Cumberland Valley, they went with the L1 Mikado for the motive power because that was a very common engine in that area. Now also, where I grew up here in Delaware, it was all Pennsylvania Railroad trackage, and the big steam engine that was used for freight service was an L1 Mikado. So this locomotive fit in with my history here in Delaware too. The U.S. Navy boxcar was for a military base along the line. The Adams Apple boxcar is coming from the Shenandoah Valley because there's a lot of apple products there. In fact, White House Apples is still in Winchester, Virginia, and it would have been really neat if there had been a White House apple car because I remember driving past their plant when I was in school. And then the flat car with the Chambersburg trolley on it. Chambersburg is one of the big lines along the Cumberland Valley line, and so this is shipping a trolley to the town of Chambersburg. And then the caboose is just because they had cataloged that caboose, and that's what they put in the set. I'm really happy with everything, and I thought the theme of this set was really, really neat. So with all that out of the way, why don't we take a look at this set running? y'all enjoyed the video. And I know it's a little bit different with me being here in front of the camera rather than just behind it and watching some trains run. But if you enjoyed it, let me know. If you didn't, and if you're just like, hey, just shut up and run trains and play some music, whatever, just let me know. I take everything into consideration, and I want to make stuff that you guys want to watch. So just let me know if you enjoyed the video. If you didn't, like, share, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. And I hope you're having a great holiday season, and I'll see you in the next one.